So you are the French government in the 40s. You've colonized 10% of the world and you couldn't be happier. But then you see countries starting to get their independence from other colonial powers through violence. Same thing happens to you with 2 of your colonies. Plus, it doesn't help that this Hitler guy is beating your ass in the Second World War. So what do? You negotiate deals with your current colonies to give them independence, wink wink. You realize that you don't have to directly control the countries, just have proxy leaders in place and have them pay you directly. You invent a new currency system that is used in your colonies and ensure that 50 to 65% of its reserves are kept in your own national bank. But what about the valuable resources that Africa holds? Well, you have a plan for that too. You negotiate first refusal deals with all your colonies and get the resources for dirt cheap. And what if the countries stand up to you and try and get back control? Easy. You just assassinate leaders who are preaching nationalism or mess up the country's economy with sanctions and inflation. Worst case scenario, you can even send in your own army to teach them a lesson. The result? You end up becoming the top 10 wealthiest and most powerful country to this day. Even though you only have a population of 67 million people and 544 square kilometers of land with not that many natural resources. Ah, c'est la vie. Today we dive into French neocolonialism in Africa. This video was made possible by all our patrons. Check out the link in the description for more. My name is Brian and we make mini documentaries on topics that the media doesn't want you to know about and how they affect Africans. Like and subscribe for more. During the 19th century, Europeans were all drooling over Africa. They saw it as an uncivilized continent with vast resources and free manpower that was up for grabs. And you, being the French, were ahead of the game. You controlled most of West and North Africa and were quickly gaining territory towards the east. This resulted in other European nations like the Germans and Belgians to also launch campaigns of their own. This was a no bueno for you and your big colonial buddies, the English and Portuguese. How dare these Germans try and take African land as their own? I mean, we were here first. So the Belgian king Leopold II convinces you and Germany to trade together so that you don't start a war and mess it up for everyone else. I mean, there was just too much free riches lying in Africa. Leopold II had other ulterior motives, which I will discuss in another video. So in November 1884, the German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck decided to have a series of super exclusive meetings where only 13 European nations and obviously the United States were invited. The purpose of the meetings were to draw lines through Africa and divide it to European nations so as to avoid a war. What about the thousands of African nations that were in Africa governing themselves? Nah, they're too uncivilized to care anyways. If they felt some type of way about it, you could just destroy them with your military might and the help of your European buddies. After all, your philosophy was that, quote, the higher races have a right over the lower races. They have a duty to civilize the inferior races, end quote. The meetings were known as the Berlin Conference. Africa was literally cut up like a cake and divided between European powers. No African person had a say in this whatsoever. As mentioned before, your philosophy was different from other colonial powers. You believed in not only taking over a colony, but also civilizing its people. This was known as Mission Civilisatrice, the civilizing mission. Your goal was to take Africans out of the darkness and into the French light. This resulted in you taking over the education system and making sure everyone in your colonies spoke French. You would bring in day-to-day French consumer goods from French companies to replace everything else. You enforced assimilations in all aspects, even in the way people dressed. The result was a France in Africa, or what is now known as France-Afrique, the free piggy bank of France. All was fine and dandy until the Second World War. Germany was raising havoc on France, and you were not capable of maintaining all your widely spread colonies. This was apparent right after the war ended. Indochina. They started talking about the I word. How dare they insult you like that? So you send troops there and fight a bloody war that you eventually lost due to lack of preparation. So you decided to cut your losses and grant Indochina its independence. But then word got around, and a lot of other countries started fighting for their independence with their colonial powers. The same thing happened again in Algeria, but no, you couldn't have this happen to you a second time. This time you send in a lot more troops and conduct a very ruthless and bloody war that resulted in over 1.5 million Algerians being killed and even more being tortured. But the Algerians persevered and eventually won the war and gained their independence. After suffering 2 embarrassing losses, you had to think outside the box. Your buddies Britain, Spain, Portugal, and all other colonial powers were going through the same thing. All colonies were revolting and fighting hard for their independence, and most of them were winning. So you thought to yourself, what if we just grant them independence without shedding any blood? It would be too good of a deal for the Africans to ignore, that they would be blinded by all the terms and conditions that we ask. They would love the deal so much that they would see us as a very merciful and forward-thinking colonial power. Brilliant! So you approach African leaders of your liking with the offer to give them independence. You make sure that you bribe them with tremendous wealth and riches for themselves. But wait, they start asking about governing their countries and monetary systems and all these things that they do not know how to do. So you offer to help them even more. You create a whole new currency that they would use. This was known as the CFA franc. It would be backed by the euro, so it would be inflation-proof. Sounds dope, right? But they would have to keep 50% of its reserves in your national bank. Yes, 50%. Yes, 50% of all the reserves of ex-French colonies are being stored in the French National Bank. Oh, but you want more. You can't forget about businesses and vast natural resources. So you also call dibs on all their resources, meaning the French would get first refusal of every natural resource generated in its ex-colonies for dirt cheap. But you still want more. It can't just stop there. You also gotta look out for the rich businessmen in your country. Everyone has to get a piece of this luscious pie. So you get a deal that gives French businesses access to all the resources and logistics, like French billionaire Vincent Bolloré, who now owns most of the major ports in West Africa. Yes, a majority of the ports in West Africa are owned by one French man. This resulted in 1,100 French companies and over 2,000 French subsidiaries doing business in ex-colonies. Of course, some African leaders were against this. Some wanted real independence and tried to fight back against your new plans. Great leaders like Thomas Sankara, the African Che Guevara, saw this new France-Afrique as an insult to Africans, which was actually true. He tried hard to fight back and change the system in Burkina Faso, but was immediately assassinated after trying to keep more than 50% of his monetary reserves. Sylvanus Olympio suffered the same consequences when trying to create a new currency for Togo. In fact, France has officially invaded its ex-colonies more than 50 times since 1960 and conducted multiple coups d'etats to overthrow defiant leaders. It's very ironic that coup d'etat is a French term, but I digress. The African leaders who obeyed were showered in riches, like Gabon's president Omar Bongo, who was reported to be worth $130 million at one point, whereas the people suffer one of the highest infant mortality rate in the world. Even his daughter-in-law appeared in VH1 buying a $25 million mansion in Los Angeles. There's also the best friend of Thomas Sankara, who took over the government after his assassination. He amassed tremendous wealth after the French gave him power. I can go on and on with these African puppets who are showered in riches by the West, but that's a video for another time. Anyway, let's get back to you and your genius plan. You managed to create a very lucrative pipeline that generated unimaginable wealth without violence. Even former French President Jacques Chirac stated that,
"We have to be honest and acknowledge that a big part of the money in our banks comes precisely from the exploitation of the African continent." In 2008, he went on to say, "Without Africa, France would slide down into the rank of a third world power."
Your operation has been nothing short of a success. France is currently the 6th richest country in the world with not that many natural resources and land. In fact, France mainly exports its luxury goods, wines, and other food products more than any natural resource. But yet it remains at the top of the food chain due to its exploitation of African nations. Even in their museum that draw millions of tourists annually, its colonial history is ever so clear. They are filled with African artifacts that were stolen from ex-colonies. In fact, France currently holds over 90,000 African artifacts that are currently displayed in museums, generating billions for the French. Talks of reparations have been a common thing, but the French have never budged. In fact, the French had the audacity to demand reparations from Haiti of 150 million francs, which is the equivalent of $30 billion in today's money. This was payment for the French losing its slave revenues and colony due to Haiti's independence. Imagine that. The French colonized Haiti, brought back millions of slaves and plundered its wealth. But then when Haiti got its independence, France demanded reparations. Isn't that insane? It took Haiti 122 years to pay off this debt. I am not making this up. Till this day, many of France's ex-colonies suffer tremendous atrocities while France gets to reap the benefits of the plunders. Imagine how much wealth has been amassed over the years. Well, at the very least, France could have lenient immigration rules and allow people from its colonies a normal life in France, right? Right? Well, not really. France has implemented one of the harshest immigration laws with deportations at a high. It has even been dubbed the Muslim world's most hated country due to its harsh anti-Islam laws. Yes, they took that title from the United States. I dive into why this is happening in France and other Western countries in the video above. I have a lot more to talk about, but I do not want to drag this video too far. A big thank you to all our Patreons who help create our videos. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure you like and subscribe for more.